This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pals Evan Grant and Shawn McFarland, both of whom are out at the ballpark for the last exhibition game of 2026. And then they'll both be on their way to Philadelphia on Wednesday. We're taping this on Tuesday. And then they will be there for the opener on Thursday. So it's a big week for the Rangers. Also a big week in college basketball. We should just mention that before we go any further with the baseball real quickly. Is anybody's bracket still good?
I refuse to do brackets.
You're just on principle?
I feel like I have to watch a few games to actually do brackets, and I haven't watched any college basketball the last couple of years for some reason or another.
I thought you were going to say that you want to watch a few games in the tournament and then do your bracket.
That would be good. I picked Georgia to win it all. How are they doing?
Not so good. That's so good. Well, here's the thing. My bracket's kind of in splinters, but my final four teams are still there. I picked the 3 number 1 seeds and Houston, which was the number 2 seed. I don't believe in picking long shots. Not anymore, especially with NIL the way it is. When Texas is considered the Cinderella of the tournament at Sweet 16, we know something has happened here in college sports. So anyway,
is Duke still doing good? I've got Duke.
You got Duke, yeah. That's just kind of like your fallback. Your default position is Duke. Default Duke, yeah. They're still in it, so you're in luck there. I hope you didn't pick Florida. That one didn't work out well for them. It's been a fun tournament. I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun. It's really good games. Really bad games too. Texas Tech was in a bad game, a bad loss there.
I just have to relate a quick story about this.
What's that?
Daughter Natalie is doing. She has 3 brackets. I asked her how much each bracket is worth. What is each pool worth? And she said, "Oh, we're just doing them for fun." And I was like, "That's the biggest waste of time I've ever seen. You don't do brackets for fun. This is all about money."
The love of the game. It's the love of competition. The love of amateurism.
Yeah, I'm not getting paid for mine. Evan,
you're not?
Mr. Only money matters.
That's right.
There's a good lesson for your stepdaughter. Tell her that. Only money matters, sweetheart.
Life lessons you learn life lessons all along the way. You're doing a bracket for fun?
Yeah. Well, I do it so I can also write about it and make fun of it.
Can we move on to baseball?
I'm sorry that disgusted you so much, Mr. Grunk. I didn't fill out a bracket. I didn't watch the game, so
I'm all about the money.
He's all about the money. All right, let's talk about these Rangers. So they finally made the decision on the rosters. I gotta say, I'm not surprised by too much of what happened there. So Andrew McCutchen is the last guy on the bench, the part-time DH, maybe play a couple of games in the outfield here and there. He certainly proved his worth. Mark Canha did as well. I was very impressed with both of them. I just thought that McCutchen got a little more pop, it seems like to me. And I think they like the mix of a former big MVP with a good personality and a little edge to her, maybe over Mark Canha, who's a little more quiet. So would you say, Evan, that was probably some of their thinking?
I think if there was a tiebreaker, that's one of them. I think the other thing that's probably more significant is that McCutchen is historically a significantly better performer against left-handed pitching than Canha is. Canha's numbers against lefties last year were awful. And look, I don't expect McCutchen to do at 39 what he did in 2013 when he was 27, but his numbers are passable and always have been average or better against left-handed pitching. And so I think that at the end of the day, that performance level of predictability is something that the Rangers counted on. But I do think there is also something to be said that, the idea of this team is we want a little bit more edge to it. And that's It's not to take away from Canna or the way he carries himself, but certainly the idea that McCutchen felt like he was a guy who maybe got overlooked a little bit or sent off to retirement a little bit prematurely and came with a chip on his shoulder. I think Chip and Skip and Chip and all the other Ips.
Dip. Well, and you're Dip. So it's
I
like
Dip.
Dip, Chip, and Skip. I love it. That's great. Okay.
We need Bip Roberts here too, and Leo the Lip, and we'd be great. Leo the Lip, Sean, was Leo DeRocher. He was a manager from a long time ago. Once dated Marilyn Monroe, as a matter of fact, I think.
I know him from
Monroe.
the Jackie Robinson movie.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There you go.
He was a
See?
manager of the Astros at one point. Leo DeRocher in Houston. Couldn't believe it.
I do think that the edge part is also it's like it's not quantifiable, but it just goes with the vibe here.
Let me ask you this, and not to make too much, because he's the last man on the bench, right? But why wouldn't somebody have given this guy a chance? He's a really good guy. He's had a great reputation in baseball. He's a former MVP. Still wants to play. He's durable. He's played in a lot of games over the last few years. Why wouldn't there have been more interest in him as exactly the role that the Rangers envisioned for him?
Well, I think there's a lot of elements there, Kevin. You know, I think that there was a significant part of time that he thought he was going to go back to Pittsburgh on the same 1-year deal he's had with the Pirates each of the last 3 years, which was 1 year, $5 million. When that became not viable, and he finally realized that, even though he thought that he had walked away from a conversation with Bob Nutting, the owner of the Pirates, that things were moving in a positive direction, when it became untenable late in the offseason, I think he was, as you would expect, a guy with his resume, waiting on a guaranteed major league deal for 2.5, 3 million, with the ability to make that 5 million. When that didn't come, then all of a sudden you're left scrambling. So I don't know at what level I would have said, all right, I'm giving you a guaranteed contract versus clearly getting him on a minor league deal with a base, a guaranteed base now that he's in the big leagues of 1.5. It's a steal one way or another. I think the Rangers were just very fortuitous in their timing and with their need, and acted more decisively than maybe a team like Atlanta did.
Yeah, that's the way it looks anyway right now. All right, so also the decision was made that Kumar Rocker would be the fifth starter and Jake Latz goes to the bullpen. Not real surprised by that either, especially because of the way that Rocker pitched towards the end of spring training. You know, he's got issues. You know, he still struggles with the running game a little bit, and he needs to throw strikes, in which he did do that in the late part of spring. So I still have my doubts about him being ready, but my gosh, when you look at him out there on the mound, and when he is, you know, got it going, he is a very impressive looking young man out there on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, it when his stuff plays and he's throwing strikes and the pitches are playing off each other, like it might be Jacob deGrom for best stuff, and then Kumar Rocker right after him in this club when it's all on. I wasn't too surprised by the decision, as much as it is Rocker earning the fifth spot. I think Jacob Latz provides a lot of flexibility in the bullpen, whether that's as a long man in a multi-inning high leverage role. I think it makes the entire pitching staff better in a way that if it was flipped, I don't think it would have the same impact. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think Rocker did go out and win this job, to your point, and they haven't shied away from it. It's the running game. It's developing that changeup. It's keeping that focus. Those are things they're still needing to see consistently. But the way he pitched his final few starts, he threw strikes. The velocity was up. The slider looked unbelievable. So as much as this does, I think, benefit the entire roster, I don't think you can say that this was handed to Rocker either. I think he did go out and show enough progress on the things they want to see. That progress isn't done yet, but he made steps in the direction that I think makes them comfortable with him in that fifth role.
Yeah. The last two outings, Kevin, he threw the ball much more downhill, and so you saw a much better ability to get the fastball to the top tier of the zone when he wanted to, and to go to the bottom of the zone. So that was one thing the Rangers liked. And I think all along, as long as this was close, the Rangers were going to lean towards Rocker because of what Latz could do in the bullpen. When Jacob had those outings where his velocity dipped as he went on, I think that gave them the opening to go this route. But I'll also point this out. In the first 40 games, the Rangers have the ability, with very minor manipulation, to use that fifth spot, maybe as few as 6 times. Conversely, if you're using Jake Latz out of the bullpen as kind of your Swiss Army knife, that guy might pitch 12 or 14 times in the first 40 games. And so you're getting more value out of that than you are perhaps out of that 5th spot.
Yeah, going into this, I felt like that Latz deserted just on the basis of how he pitched last year. Looked really good. And but then, when I was out there, Evan and you and I were talking to him after that one start, and where his velocity dipped, the third time around, and you could really see the case for why the Rangers would want to do this. I mean, it doesn't do a lot of good. There's a lot of 5th starters who don't go much further than the 5th inning anyway. But if you've got a guy that you are projecting, and the guy who's Rocker's 26 now, it's time for him to be out there, right? He's going to be what you think he is. Then at some point he's got to prove it on the mound. So I think this is probably pretty good for them as it is now, and the way the bullpen sets up too. That Skip Schumaker tell him everybody how he informed Carter Baumler that he had made the team.
Oh, is this this part where we're supposed to talk like trained ponies?
Trained ponies, yeah. Well, yeah. I haven't trained you well enough, clearly.
Perform.
Well,
Perform.
my job as the moderator is to ask questions and then y'all answer them. I know that that's a difficult concept for you at times, but anyway, so let's go with Shawn's take on this, since he's not quite as resistant. Shawn, what do you say?
Perform, Shawn.
About Carter Baumler.
Look, I think he was their best reliever in spring. I mean, that's pretty, I think, pretty firm. And I think at the end of the day, and we can talk about what happened last night with the Skip giving him the news on the mound, which is great. And I think, as Evan has said, and it was a good capper to how spring training ended. But you look at what he did in spring. The curveball is really nasty. I think if you ask guys in that clubhouse, it's one of the best pitchers in the entire roster. But if he can match that, throw that for strikes, and also have a mid-90s fastball he can throw for strikes, that's a real weapon in the bullpen. And it's not easy to carry a Rule 5 guy on your roster because of the limitations it brings. And, I think in choosing him over an optional reliever or someone that gives you more flexibility, like a Luis Curvelo, it's a sign that, and Skip had said this a few times in camp as he was going over roster decisions and what he's weighing, but it's about breaking camp with your best roster. And Carter Baumler, I think, represents a piece of their best roster because of what he can do that, few guys in that bullpen can. So I think if you just look at it from a roster building standpoint, from a player acquisition standpoint, getting him the Rule 5 draft or be a trade after the Rule 5 draft, it's a good piece of front office work to go find a guy that can provide something in a bullpen that needed that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and there was no way you could take a guy who pitched 9 scoreless innings in spring training as a Rule 5 draftee, or 9 innings without an earned run. He did allow 1 unearned run, and not carry that guy into the season. So what I thought was interesting was that Skip went out there last night and told him on the mound that he was making the team while he was in the middle of the game, and he wanted to do something for the kid in a special way to signify a really special moment. And nobody that I talked to in that clubhouse, from Schumaker to DeGrom to Evaldi to Corey Seager, had ever seen somebody informed that way. And so it was a special moment for the kid. And I think what it speaks to mostly is kind of the intent with which Skip Schumaker operates. There's meaning behind everything he does. And so I think that was important. I think the challenge of carrying him all year is going to be difficult. But there are ways you can get around this a little bit. He could wind up on the IL with a strained calf or a strained back at some point in time. And you
Are you
now
implying
have,
skullduggery here?
what's that?
Are you implying skullduggery here?
Listen, I think, you can find something wrong with a pitcher anytime you need to. I know that MLB frowns on fake ILs, but it's hard to carry that guy all year. Let's just say that. And right now you've got Josh Sborz in the minor leagues on a minor league deal. He's not on the 40-man roster. This also gives you some flexibility because if you do need an arm sometime in the first 2 weeks of the season, you can place Sborz on your 40-man roster and add him. You can select a contract. You cannot recall a player who has been optioned unless there's an injury. So if the Rangers run into a situation where they've got two arms just down from being worked hard and they've got to get an arm here, their only route to do it would be to call up Josh Sborz and select him. So they have that option for the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, so that's good. So we still don't see a full-blown closer out here. This will be a maybe a mini committee, right? Between Robert Garcia and Chris Martin.
That's the intent. I mean, it's going to be hard for Chris Martin to be anything close to a full-time closer if he can't go back-to-back games. And I think right now, at the very least, it would be impractical to think that, he could close a game on a Tuesday. Let's see, the Rangers on their first home series, they play day game, night game, day game. It'd be hard to think that he could close that Saturday game and then come back and pitch a day game on Sunday. I don't see him pitching day games after night games. So there's going to be some split duties with Robert Garcia, but I think you just do go into the season with the same idea that if this team is going to contend this year, they're going to have to add to the back end of that bullpen before it's all over and done with.
And I think we've kind of said that seemed like a fine plan. But of course, there's always the possibility that what happens is that because you don't have a closer at the outset, that you shoot yourself in the foot here, a half dozen times in the first month and cost yourself, 6 or 7 wins. And then you've put yourself out of the race just because you didn't have a closer that you said you were going to trade for if you could.
That's the potential exposure that they're left with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this will be interesting to see how it works out. Of course, that's the thing. And I was telling somebody last night at dinner, I think that the Rangers can be competitive. I think that if their rotation holds up, and certainly if the bullpen holds up, and if they get any kind of hitting this year, then yeah, they can be a contender. But everything has to go right, and they have to stay healthy. And that's what happens with any team that goes anywhere in baseball, right?
Did you have a nice dinner last night, Kevin?
I had dinner last night without you. We went to Savvy's, had a little wine deal at their little wine thing at Savvy's last night.
It's nice that you had a nice dinner. We were out here at the ballpark.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, man. The life of a columnist is just like as Steve Tiger Richardson once called me. He once called me a luxury line. He said that's
they don't make it hard on the columnists.
No, are you kidding? No, because we'll get mad and throw a big hissy fit, and then where would they be? Columnists throwing hissy fits. Can't have that. So let's back to this. Shawn, I want to discuss your the story. I believe you did that for our Fine Baseball section, which will be coming out shortly. But about who had the best pitches on the staff, and so don't break them all down, but just tell us who had what best pitch. Just start with that.
I probably talked to 15 or 20 players in the clubhouse and pretty much posed them, what are the best pitches of this team? And everyone's answer in order was Jacob deGrom's fastball and Nathan Eovaldi's splitter. And you really had to pry to get more than just that. And once you got into it, their eyes opened up, they looked in the clubhouse, and lots of great submissions, a lot of great information that I got from that story. But it was pretty funny that it was, probably of the 20 guys I talked to, at least 19 to 20 immediately said Jacob deGrom's fastball, Nathan Eovaldi's splitter. And then someone on to say, deGrom's slider, deGrom's changeup. You went through his whole arsenal. But I think it's a good, it kind of represents the strength of this rotation, right? These two co-aces up top who, with DeGrom has unbelievable stuff in pinpoint command of this fastball, and Evaldi with the splitter that he just knows how to use in any count, in any situation, and he's so comfortable with it. In hitters alike, pitchers alike, they all talk about those two pitches, and they just kind of raved over how those guys operate, how those guys work. Yeah, I think Tyler Alexander said he watched the DeGrom bullpen. It's like it blows even veteran pitchers away watching him work. I think Evaldi described DeGrom as like it's like the state fair when you gotta throw the little dart at the balloon, or you gotta shoot a basketball through a comically small rim, and he's able to do that with his fastball. So it was fun to do that story. One, because we know from watching Jacob DeGrom and Nathan Evaldi how good they are from our vantage point, but getting to hear an entire roster of good hitters, good pitchers, experienced catchers really just kind of glow over how good those weapons are. It just kind of puts into perspective like that those two are really in a tier of their own. Not just on the roster, but even in a lot of cases league wide with what they're able to do.
Yeah, no question about it. It was a fun story. And so, Evan, let me ask you this, because that brings up a great point. You've been covering the Rangers since 1997. I'm trying to think of all the pitchers that encompassed. Obviously, it was not in an era of Nolan Ryan. And, in the late 70s, the Rangers had some really good pitchers and guys who ended up in the Hall of Fame. Gaylord Perry, Bert Blyleven, Fergie Jenkins. Those were some really impressive pitchers who were terrific. Most of them at the end of their careers when they were here. I guess pretty much in all of those cases, they were pretty much at the
Well,
end.
not Fergie.
Well, Fergie pitched a little bit longer. That's true, but he had
already an established career. Yes.
Yes, but he wasn't established. And it's the same thing with both Evaldi and DeGrom as well. But in your tenure with the Rangers, has there been, and I think I know what you're going to say, has there been any pitcher who is as talented as Jacob DeGrom?
No.
So you would not even put Darvish in the same league? Darvish?
No, I wouldn't put Cole Hamels. I wouldn't put Cliff Lee in the same league. I mean, Jacob DeGrom is a first ballot Hall of Fame talent. Now, it's been tainted a little bit by the amount of injuries he's gone through, but when he's on the mound, there's no doubt he's one of the top 5 pitchers in the league. And yeah, that includes counting Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens. I mean, Jacob DeGrom is as good as anybody in the league. And look, Kevin, I mean, the focus of our whole special section that we'll run in Thursday's paper and is available mostly online right now is all about pitching. And Shawn broke down the individual pitchers things, but the story I wrote was about this is the Rangers pitching era. That this is the first time they've ever led the major leagues in rotation ERA, and this rotation could be the best rotation that they've ever had. It's very, very talented. With the one caveat being, can the two guys at the top stay healthy?
Yeah, no question about that. Well, I did do a little, and part of that I contributed to this thing too. Although it kind of got out of hand, and next thing I know, it's 40 inches long, and I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of travails to talk about.
Well, I actually ended up writing mostly about why the Rangers have struggled so much with pitching. So I talked to Tom Grieve because Tom's been around forever and was as a player, as a farm director, as a GM, as a broadcaster, and Tom's just a great guy anyway, and always good to talk to. And he brought up, to your point about the best rotations, those ones there were some rotations in the late 70s were really good, where Doc Medich is your number 3 or 4 guy. And so
I think in that story, I did like a chart on what I ranked as like the top 5 rotations in history. And it was the 77 or 78 rotation that had, there was a rotation that had both Blyleven and Perry.
Right.
You had a rotation in the mid 80s when you had all those young guys that were just coming up. Edwin Correa, Bobby Witt at that point in time. I think Kevin Brown made his debut in 86, so he didn't pitch very much that year. And you still had Charlie at the top of the rotation. And then you go into like 2011 or 2011 for me with CJ Wilson and Colby Lewis and just the grit of that rotation. But in terms of talented pieces and high draft choices, there's nothing close to this.
No, I don't think so either. And that's the thing about, well, that's why I stipulated a Hall of Fame talent or pure talent is Jacob deGrom, because of the point that you made is obviously he just hasn't pitched a lot. When he pitches, he's just unbelievable. And that's the thing that's striking about him is that he can be, out of the, of the game for 6 months and come back and he looks just like bang. It's just good right away. It's just unbelievable. I remember the first time I saw him in spring training, and Chris Young was watching him, and I was watching him, and I talked to Chris afterwards, and he had this big smile on his face. I said, "It's just unbelievable to watch." He's if you see him otherwise, he's he's just long and lanky, and it looks like it'd be the hardest thing in the world to sync all this up, and yet he does, and it is such a talent. I don't know how hard he worked on it. I know he was not a high draft pick, and I guess he'd been a shortstop at one time and before he became a pitcher. And but his ability when he's on the mound, when everything's working, and and I love to watch him when somebody gets a hit, or especially when somebody hits a home run, which that has happened to him too frequently last year. The look on his face, the disgust. It's like his thought is that no one should be getting anything off of him.
I told him it's funny. I had gone back and looked at he gave up a decent number of home runs last year, and I was doing something on the home runs that he gave up, and I went back and I looked at video of every home run, and the reaction was the same: a spin around, hands on his hips, a scowl on his face, and then emotions for the ball. Yeah, his expectation is that nobody should possibly be touching the ball, and his expectations when he doesn't live up to his expectations, he's in a foul mood.
Yeah, he is. All right, so we talked about the rotation, we talked about the bullpen and the guys that are making the team and all that. We haven't talked about the lineup. So we have in the past said what we think that the lineup will be. Give me Evan, give me your your lineup, and Shawn, if you disagree with any of that, just jump right in and tell Evan he's an idiot.
With the regular lineup?
Yeah, regular lineup. Here we go.
Well, I asked Schumaker on Monday if he had a regular lineup, and he said no. But the first 4 spots are pretty much guaranteed with Nimmo, Langford, Seager, Berger. That's how they'll go, and then it'll start to get a little bit wonky after that. But I think right now they're leaning towards Josh Smith in the 5th spot, Josh Young 6th, Jock Peterson 7th, Higashioka 8th, and Evan Carter 9th. Now again, when they face lefties, there will be some tweaking of that with Sam Haggerty in the lineup and potentially Ezekiel Duran and McCutchen. But if you go the way I just mentioned against right-handed pitchers, you've got extreme balance throughout the lineup. It makes it really tough for opposing managers to really pick lanes for their relievers. And I think the only surprising element of it is that you come out of spring with potentially Josh Smith hitting 5th among those lefties in the bottom half.
I think that that's probably mostly because of that he is a lefty, right? He's just trying to get that in order. I mean, if you're and he's had a good spring and he's got a little bit of pop. I think that in a normal, if you were disregarding the left right, that Young would be your 5th place hitter if he is performing. Right?
I'm sorry. I was receiving
that whole thing,
a most important text from the columnist who does work, Tim Kalishaw.
Wow. Well, he sees a text from Tim. Oh my gosh, Tim is texting me.
I'm very surprised when he does, so I'm very excited.
Tim, it's me, Evan. Oh my gosh.
So what was your question again?
I'm not even going back there.
Shawn, what was his question?
Shawn, you answer the question, Shawn. What do you think? You were listening.
I think big picture, you look at the lineup, To Evans, I think that top four is pretty much in stone. I think it'll be interesting from 5 on what happens with the individual player, right? If you have Jock at 7 and Josh Young at 6 or Josh Smith at 5, those are 3 guys that are going to be very interesting to watch this season in terms of Josh Smith, how he maintains the second half. Josh Young, can he rebound effectively 2 bad seasons? Can Jock Peterson be a league average hitter, which he hasn't been since last spring training? I think that's when you talk about lineup changes and how this lineup will develop and progress over the course of the year. I think that 5 through 7 is really fascinating because just are you riding the hot hand? Are you sticking to that balance that Evan talked about? Are you flipping guys out? Are you how do you handle that? I think that bottom, that second, third, whatever you want to call it, of the lineup is going to be the most flexible, I guess. I don't know how you want to describe it, but it's going to be so determined on the individual seasons these guys have. And I think that'll be interesting to see the first month of the season, how guys come out and what they look like and how that impacts the lineup.
Listen, I think you could stretch that up to 4. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
Chip Berger is guaranteed to hit 4 all year, but I do think, when you start facing lefties and you start stacking more right-handers in there, you could certainly end up with a 5, 6, 7 that where you do string some right-handers together, where you do go to Josh Young 5th, Andrew McCutchen 6th, maybe even, that's a day where Duran plays, he hits 7th. And then, you go Higashioka and Carter or Haggerty. So I think it's going to be interesting and deployed based on what Skip thinks is the best way to take advantage of both the starting pitcher that's an opponent that day, but also to create the most potentially intriguing matchups against their bullpen. And if a team is going to parade a bunch of right-handed relievers out there, the Rangers can one after another, start running their lefties that they've got, because they've got a full complement of lefties that would be sitting on the bench that day, to give them weapons against to neutralize that.
So what's going to happen this weekend with Evan Carter?
That is to me, that is the most fluid thing. If there's one thing where I didn't feel like the Rangers were completely on the same page, it was in hearing the explanations about how Evan Carter will be used. Chris Young said, we view him primarily as our everyday center field.
He called him the primary center fielder, I believe was the phrasing.
Primary everyday center fielder. But then he also said, there will be lefties that he doesn't play against. And Wyatt will play some center field. And so when it was all said and done, it sounded an awful lot like a kind of like a platoon to me. That's not being called a platoon, but I think it'll go based on the Rangers will give Carter some opportunities to play against left-handers. Some. He'll have to succeed against them. If he doesn't, then he's not going to play against lefties. Then it becomes the issue of, are you sliding Wyatt Langford over there once or twice a week, or all of a sudden are you sliding him over there 3 or 4 times a week? And that makes it a little bit more sticky. Do you then decide we're just going to play Wyatt Langford in center field every day instead of shuttling him around back and forth? I don't think it's particularly fair to Wyatt Langford to have him shuttle between left and center. But what everybody here tells me is Evan feels comfortable in center. Wyatt does not care one way or another. So potentially you have a low ego guy who's willing to just move around positions. And if that's the deal and it works, and the Rangers can roll with it and see what they get from Evan Carter against lefties and see if he can stay healthy.
It was interesting to me that I think that I read that Chris Young said that when Sam Haggerty plays, that he'll be playing left field. He did not say he would be playing center field. And I think that Sam Haggerty could play center field on a part-time basis, and that'd be just fine. You just leave Wyatt in left field. But it made it seem like, no, we want to have our best guy playing center field, whether that's, Evan Carter or that's Wyatt Langford is our second choice. And we do not want to go with someone else in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's the thing. And Evan, you sort of touched about this the lineup in terms of ordering this lineup and maximizing it to get the most out of that day's opponent, the starter, the bullpen, what have you. And I think that's something that Skip has said a few times over the course of spring about just his mindset and how he's wired in terms of, attacking the day in hand versus, in making sure you talk about the roster, right? Make sure you break camp with your best 26. And I think that's going to bleed into lineup management, into defensive alignment. That if Evan Carter is not playing, they view Wyatt Langford as their best option center field, so they're going to have him there.
They still feel it. They absolutely feel
Yeah,
it.
and I think that that's I think maybe going to be something to follow this season with lineup organization, defensive alignment, bullpen management in terms of I think they're going to prioritize being able to put out the best possible alignment for that given day. And that might end up with, to Evan's point, guys flipping back and forth, Evan in center, Wyatt in left, vice versa, whatever, what have you. I think that's going to fit with that theme of trying to maximize what you have for the issue at hand.
Okay. All right. All right. We need to get out here pretty soon, but I got a couple of quick things I want to run past y'all. So what was your take on ABS after a full spring of it?
Oh, I thought it was a yes segment, a rapid fire yes no segment. I'm sorry.
What?
Thought we were getting into rapid fire, and I just jumped in with a yes.
Oh, sorry. No, what did you think of ABS? How did it work out?
Oh, I like it. I mean, I think it's great. And if it alleviates arguments in the game, which I think are mostly silly but fun to watch, that's great. But mostly if it gets a more accurate strike zone, that's fantastic. Now I will say this, Kevin. I mean, very rarely was there a pitch that we were seeing on the board that was outside the zone by more than an inch. Right? So we're talking about pitches that are fractions of an inch off the plate. And I think if there's anybody who's going to be unhappy about that, obviously, it's going to be the pitchers because they want the edges a little bit more. But I haven't heard any complaints about it, and I think it works smoothly. I think it adds that little 2 seconds worth of suspense while they flash the thing up there on the board. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
What do you think, Shawn?
I like it. It's quick. It moves fast. It takes all of, I don't know, 10 seconds max. And to Evan's point, I've been thinking about this ever since I had this conversation. But last year, I think when they announced it was coming full time this year, I talked with Cody Freeman about it, who had experience in AAA level with it. And the first thing he said was like, I think the fans really like it. I think it brings another level of excitement to the game.
But Shawn, you forget the biggest thing about baseball. You're still new to the sport. What the fans like doesn't matter.
It's all about the BBWA and what we want, our strong and powerful union. That's really, and the players know that. They know it runs through us. But no, I think it adds some excitement. It's quick, it's fast, and even after Nathan Eovaldi's last start, I asked him just generally about what he's seen from the offense, and he kind of said like, I don't know if it's like the ABS having an impact, but like I think we have better pitch selection this year on offense. So I think there is a I don't know how large it is, but a factor in this where it might help with some strike recognition or plate discipline or just or that kind of thing. I don't think that's kind of a massive impact, but I think it's of one prong of what ABS brings. But no, overall I'm a fan. I like it. Quick, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's very fun seeing a pitch. We had one, I think, in maybe the last exhibition in Scottsdale that was like a centimeter off the plate, and I think it's kind of fun to see stuff like that. But overall, I'm a fan. I'm for it.
I think there'd be a couple of players who it's going to impact here, and it was funny one of them up. But first, I'll say Wyatt Langford, who it seemed like was getting more bad calls than anybody else.
Oh, really? You're really going out on a limb there?
What? Why is it that I'm always having to go out on a limb? I don't say I'm going out. Did I say I was going out on a limb?
Why did you? I mean, I think it goes without saying that Wyatt Langford is going to be significantly impacted by this.
Do we think that all the listeners know that, Evan?
Oh, are you saying the listeners are dumb, Kevin?
Why would we even have a podcast if we're not trying to inform listeners of things?
Well, this is all about entertainment, Kevin.
Well, then we're failing miserably, especially anytime you're talking. My God.
I want the listeners to know real quick that there was one singular night in spring training when the three of us were all in the same house. And this is what it is. This is not like some act for the podcast. This is not some like show they put on. This is just what it was for the 2 hours we were all together.
That Shawn
Hey, no, I mean, look, it's ever since Wyatt Langford got screwed on 3 consecutive pitches by Angel Hernandez, right? It's been very clear that he had gotten a lot of bad calls. The one thing, when I look back at this last year, the one thing that I found interesting was Josh Young had one of the highest number of called thirds on this team that were outside of the zone. So I think he could be a sneaky guy that gets some benefit from ABS. Now, he's got to use the challenges wisely, and it's got to be in certain situations. But I do think that Josh Young could see some significant impact from that as well. And obviously, Evan Carter's a guy who has great strike zone discipline. So I mean, look, I'd like to think that part of the reason that the Rangers ended up leading the major leagues in walks this spring is that they've got good strike zone command and discipline.
Well, I love when I asked Josh Smith about it, and he said, "Oh, I'm the worst. I think everything's a ball." And so it'll be interesting to see how this goes forward, because there are going to be times when you have to know how to use it, right? You got to just say, "Hey, this is," as Skip Schumaker said, let's not be selfish about this, right? Let's understand the situation here, and let's don't get emotional here and tap for something that it's not going to be really a benefit.
Right, and I think that there may have to be some restraints placed on Josh Smith and Ezekiel Duran. That is my predictions.
Ezekiel Duran. Oh, speaking of which, Duran really finished strong. I've basically given up on Zeke Duran. I just thought, he's never going to be what he seemed to be at one point, and he may not, but he did close strong in spring training and locked up a spot as the utility infielder.
I think hitting that home run, which led to what, Sean? 2 more? He ended up with 3. Is that right?
Yeah, he finished with 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think hitting the home run was a really big relief, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not. But going more than a full season without a home run, I think it really weighed on the kid's mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our podcast this week.
You don't want our predictions on the season?
No, I decided I don't want them. I don't care about your prediction. You're always wrong. And so why would I want to ask? Are you going out on a limb here? What, pretty
How
much.
many wins, Kevin, how many wins do you have the Rangers getting this year?
If you're not going out on a limb, Evan's not interested in what you have to say.
This is our new podcast, Old Men Yelling at Clouds, with occasional young people strolling by.
I hope that you're not lumping yourself in with the young people, like the Shawn McFarlands of the world. My gosh.
No, I said old men. Me and you, with Sean, our young guest. Sean, what do you got for Ranger wins this year? How many?
I said 86 in the last podcast we did. I'm going to stick with 86. I like that number. I think it's what I put in print for our predictions. So I'm not gonna waver from that. I feel good about that. Could go either way, but that's where I'm landing.
Evan, didn't you say 102?
I said 86 as well. I had them taking, I think, the 3rd wild card spot. But yeah, and listen, if they do stay healthy and they do get a closer, maybe it goes higher than that. But I'll buy into the vibe and the intent and the improved strike zone discipline, and that the pitching staff will remain relatively healthy, and we'll go with 86 wins. Kevin?
Every year, at the end of the year, I write a column in which I set myself on fire for all the stupid things I say and my things that I regret and the mistakes I made. And when I'm going back over the entire year, and let me tell you something, that is a painful process to read every single thing I've written.
Well, think about the readers.
Yes. Well, but they're not doing it all at once. I'm doing it all at once. And
they have a little bit of misery every day, Kevin.
Oh, well. And so anyway, so I'm doing that, and I don't know, 60% of the regrets are about the Rangers. And so I told Chris Young that this spring when we were having a little discussion, and I said, when I'm making I'm too optimistic about the Rangers. So I'm going in this year under. I'm doing the under here. So I'm going to say 82 wins for the Rangers. I'm going to say that they are not going to remain healthy. They remain the rotation was healthy last year. I don't think they can do that 2 years in a row. If they do, more power to them. I think they do have the potential to be a wild card team. I don't think they can catch the Mariners, but I think they can be a wild card team. And then, you get into the postseason and anything can happen then. So
I think the one thing I'm confident in saying is I don't see any way the Rangers finish the season with between 78 and 83 wins. I think that 1-5 win window is not likely. Only because if they're not playing well, they're going to trade off all their pieces and they're going to be a bottom feeder. If they do play well, they're going to add, and I think they're going to make a push. So I just don't see another 78 and 84 or an 81 and 81 the last 2 years. I think the Rangers are either going to be winners or they're going to be losers this year.
That's a great point. We didn't even talk about them potentially trading off everybody, but they will.
We'll get to that, or maybe we won't. Maybe we won't. Maybe everything will go well, and you can write about all the things you got right this year, Kevin.
That'd be great. That'd be a nice way to finish this season, wouldn't it? Finish the year. I'd like that. That's kind of dreaming, but anyway. All right, that's going to do it for our podcast this week. We'll be back next week talking more, and they're going to have their home opener, and that'll be fun, and I'll be out there for that. From everybody in here,
baseball game, Shawn.
Keep the seat warm.
Can I at least finish what I'm going to say here and get out of here without being interrupted?
I never get to finish with my wife, so welcome to my world.
Thank God. From everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.